All right, justice lovers, I have a special treat for you today. I have attorney Benjamin Crump, who we've all seen on TV representing the likes of families like Trayvon Martin,
Michael
Brown. The list goes on and on. Honestly, when we see you on TV, it's usually not a good thing that we're seeing you on TV. I mean, it's good to see you, but you know, what you're representing is...
Well, my personal hero is Thurgood Marshall, and as his legacy, we have to be there to fight for those who can't fight for themselves, those who are the most marginalized, the most just mistreated, disrespected, and that often is people of color, especially young, poor people of color, like the 13 black women I represented in Oklahoma City who was raped by the white police officer, literally Jamal, a serial rapist with a badge that I don't believe ever got the attention it deserved, because they were saying that these women, these sisters, who remind me of my mother and my wife and my daughter, and you know, women who are so close to me, it was almost as if there was no fact pattern, no objective criteria I could give you where that community in Oklahoma would define it as rape. It was like they were unrapeable. Wow. And so when we were able to achieve justice for those women and that serial rapist with a badge, Daniel Holtzclaw was found guilty and sentenced to 265 years in prison. That was a major, major victory, a major achievement. But you notice it wasn't covered by most mainstream media. And so that's why I'm so happy with what you do with Black Tree TV, man. When we have our own media, our own messaging, where we can control the narrative, it's so important to the future.
Yeah. And how different was that case from the number of other cases? Because I know, like, criminally, you know, Zimmerman and Darren Wilson, like none of these people were found criminally guilty, but you had to deal with it in civil court on that side. But in this case with Oklahoma, you was able to represent them, and the officer was found.
It's interesting, and so we have to be very careful to make sure people understand. I'm a civil rights lawyer. As a private lawyer, the only thing I can do is bring a civil case, and in instances where Trayvon or Michael Brown or Tamir Rice, all these cases, Eric Gardner, where they're killed, all you can do is sue the police department in the city for monetary damages, which we do, and we win. We always win those. The things we can control, we prevail. But the things we don't control, like whether somebody is going to go to jail or not, that is all based on the district attorney or the prosecuting attorney. And so the only thing you can do is go vote the elected officials out who lost the Trayvon Martin case, who lost the Michael Brown case, who lost the Tamir Rice case, who lost the Eric Gardner case, who lost the Alton Sterling case, who lost the Philando Castile case. I mean, the list goes on and on, where these prosecutors, I believe, aren't really trying to get convictions against police officers when they kill people of color.
Is it true that sometimes when they do charge, they overcharge just so that they know that, or I mean, is that like a technique that they do? I know in some cases it seems like, yeah, of course we in the community know it's murder, but really in the court probably could get manslaughter or whatever. Yeah. But then like sometimes the prosecutor goes for a higher charge and then everything gets dismissed, like in Baltimore.
Absolutely, with Freddie Gray. Yeah, a lot of times when you go first-degree murder, that's the most serious charge you can bring in a capital felony case. And it's, you know, it's a high standard. You have to prove it was intentional and they sought to do it. And, you know, when you have police, normally people give them the benefit of the doubt in American society. So when they do charge with these first-degree murder charges, it makes you scratch your head. But there's a bigger thing at play here, I believe, Jamal. It is what I call the intellectual justification of discrimination. And that is, I mean, it's the highest levels of American institutions of government. It's on the level with the United States Supreme Court, with the Department of Justice. You know, think about this United States Supreme Court in, you know, Gardner v. Tennessee and Graham v. Connor. They say, you know, the police get a free pass anytime they kill mostly people of color with saying 3 little magic words. I felt in fear, or I felt threatened. That's all they got to do. Yeah. I don't care how much objective evidence you present. I mean, you got video, and still the Supreme Court says, well, if they felt fear, we're not going to Monday morning quarterback them. And if the police, you know, they got a tough job, and you hear it over and over again, well, how about our right to live? How about our right to breathe on this earth? Doesn't that count for something? So you have the highest levels of government institutionalizing and justifying the discrimination when it comes to people of color. And that's a bigger battle than even these prosecutors who I think are just following what the higher ups do. And like the police are the low people on the totem pole. Yeah. I mean, the prosecutors, the judges, and all of them are participating in this genocide, this you know, genocide of black people on many levels. When you think about how they kill us in the courtroom after they assassinate our children on the streets. And I can just give you example after example. You know, when you think about Trayvon Martin case, it did seem like it was a fish out of water experience for them to be justifying the dignity and the honor of a young black man versus trying to lock him up and throw away the key. Yeah. You know, and then Michael Brown, my God, how the prosecutor just changed all the rules when it came to grand jury proceedings because, Jamal, you and your audience on Black Tree TV should know that in grand jury proceedings, when you go in courtrooms, man, the grand jury 99.99999 to infinity normally gets the grand jury to return an indictment whenever they want it. Whenever they want one, they get it. Yeah. But when it's a young black person lying on the ground, a black or brown person, and the police are the killer, then they can't ever get an indictment. I mean, I don't care if you got video or whatever. Well, the grand jury, they didn't agree to charge the police officer. But what Michael Brown did that was so unique, it gave us an opportunity of something we never see. It gave us the insides and the inner workings of a grand jury proceeding. Because remember, the only lawyer in the room is the prosecutor, and then you got 30 or 40 regular citizens. And so they normally gonna do whatever the lawyer in the room tell them to do. If they want an indictment, they'll get an indictment. If they don't, they won't. And so Michael Brown, the prosecutor, Bill McCullough, he kept saying, Bob McCullough, he kept saying, oh, we just want to be fair. We just want to be fair. He kept going over and over again. You know, we in Ferguson fighting for Michael Brown, this 18-year-old kid who had his hands up, was shot in broad daylight. They let his body lay out on the ground for 4 hours. His mother and father out there trying to get to their child, offer him some humanity. They got the police tape and dogs won't even let them get to him. And this prosecutor keeps saying, we just want to be fair. We just want to be fair. We're going to let everybody testify and everything. And it all sounds good if you're not woke and you don't understand what's going on. It sounds real good, this whole idea of, oh, let's just be fair. I want to be extra fair. I want to let everybody testify. I'm going to even let the police who assassinated this unarmed teenager in broad daylight, I'm going to let him testify. And they didn't let him testify for over 2 hours with no cross-examination. And you think about this here. There have been black people who have been charged with crimes. And there's a famous U.S. Supreme Court case where the young black man said, I'm innocent, I didn't do this crime. I didn't do it. Let me testify before the grand jury. I didn't do it. They said, no, you can't testify. So he gets convicted for 7 years. And then when some good lawyers help get him out of jail, he then sues the prosecutor's office. And it goes all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. And Justice Anton Scalia, of all people, authors the opinion. And what he says is, to this young black man who's been wrongfully incarcerated, who asked to testify to the grand jury, he says, well, the purpose of the grand jury is not for the opportunity to offer exculpatory evidence or put forth your theory of your defense. It is only to form the basis for which the foundation is laid where they can charge somebody with a crime. Now just suppose that with Michael Brown. While this guy was able just to turn all the rules over to benefit the police officer, the killer cop who killed Michael Brown, but when young black people try to say, well, let us testify in the grand jury, you say, no, that's not appropriate. That's what I mean when I say the intellectual justification of discrimination. It's like reverse engineering justice. We figure out the outcome we want, and then we just go make arbitrarily the rules of what it is. So I can go on all day about that because I live it every day in courtrooms all across America, man.
You know, one thing that I've noticed, like with all these killings, and we've seen like a lot more evidence of this lately, is that the killings is one innocent person, unarmed person getting killed is too many. But in the grand scope of things, it's not the greatest. I mean, to me, the everyday person that gets the police called on them at the Starbucks or at Yale or whatever, who may have a result of that, a lifelong result from their interaction with the cop, that might have lived, might not have got beat up, might not have got shot, but that interaction with the cop or going to jail or whatever might have a lifelong impact on these people. I think that we focus on these killers because they're extreme and they're brutal, and you see what you see the thing on camera. But I think there's a huge problem with just the everyday interaction, and there's so many people that, you know, whose case doesn't get the limelight or whatever, that's been derailed over madness.
Jamal, you bring up a lot of interesting points, and I know we're going to talk about evidence of innocence in a short while here. That's about the ultimate miscarriages of justice, where you have completely innocent people being put in prison for crimes they didn't commit for decades. All these young black and brown people. But just to speak directly to what you said, man, I go around and I speak at universities and law schools and, you know, civil rights groups, all these, even these white organizations that I go speak to. And I've always tried to do what my mother and my grandmother taught me. And they said, if you get an opportunity to speak truth to power, you do it, baby. You speak truth to power. And what I tell them is that it is terrible how Trayvon Martin was killed. It's terrible how Michael Brown was killed. Terrence Crutcher in Oklahoma. Tamir Rice, and 12 years old in Cleveland. You know, Philando Castile in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Corey Jones in West Palm Beach. I mean, I tell them, it's terrible what happened to them. But I submit to you, it is far worse what happened in courtrooms every day in America. Any city you go to, don't take Ben Crump word for it, you just go sit in the back of the courtroom and you watch how it's bad when they kill us on the street corners, but it's even worse when they kill us in the courtroom with these trumped up felony charges. You have little black and brown people, and you have white people have the same fact patterns, very similar fact patterns. You have little Billy and little Becky, these young white people, and they get a slap on the wrist. But then you have these black people, you know, Shaniqua and Leroy, whomever, they have similar fact patterns. And they never get the benefit of the doubt, the benefit of possibility, the benefit of consideration. They get taken over to the corner, they get fingerprinted, and they get handcuffed, and they get convicted of these trumped up felony charges that they now have to wear on their backs like a cross for the rest of their lives in this information age, where you have this felony conviction out. If you're a young minority and you're trying to get a decent job and you got a felony conviction, you know how hard the odds are stacked against you. I mean, Jamal, it's these collateral consequences. When you took the plea deal because you was facing a Hobson's charge, we'll give you 6 months in jail if you plead to it, or if you go to trial and roll the dice against a jury of anybody but your peers, and you get convicted, we're going to put you away for 15 to 25 years. So the young brother or sister, they take the plea. And so now they say, well, at least I'm not going to be in prison, but now you can't get certification to be a teacher. You can't get certification to be a real estate agent. You can't get certification to be a nurse. In many places, you can't live in government housing. I mean, the collateral consequences are great, not to mention jury selection, not to mention you can't serve in the military, all this stuff. You can't vote. But then, I mean, you can't even get a decent job because you can't ever get certified for anything. And on top of all of that, in many states, Jamal, if you are a convicted felon and you serve time in prison, you can't even get life insurance. And so, even though you're not dead, it's like you're the walking dead. You just ain't got the death certificate yet. And that's what they're doing to us every day in courtrooms in every city in America.
Man, this is just too heavy, man. But we gotta keep this conversation going. So we're gonna take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're gonna talk about the evidence of innocence.
Yes, sir.
And some more of this tragedies that's going on, man, and how we can fix it.
Hey, and we can't fix it, man.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Now stay tuned.
Today in America, there are thousands of men and women in prison for crimes they didn't commit.
I'm handcuffed, placed in a police car.
They slammed me on the car. He said you're under arrest for murder.
Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law.
True stories of men and women who were wrongfully convicted.
I spent 15 years.
12 years.
27 years in prison for a crime that I did not commit.
I didn't do it.
People who fought to reveal the truth.
This is a wrongful conviction.
There's DNA in this case that needs to be tested.
And win back their freedom.
I got to right this wrong.
Why did they do this to me?
I'm about to die in prison.
I didn't want to be here.
My family was behind me, and the system was in front of me.
Despite evidence of innocence.
And we're back with attorney Benjamin Crump and talk about evidence of innocence and America. Speaking of, did you see the This Is America video that
did.
came out? What was your reaction when you seen that?
Well, it's a deep message when you really think about it, and it was profound.
So tell me about this docuseries you're a part of. It's a 4-part series, correct?
Yeah, 4-part series, and as it has been quoted in the Amsterdam News, a black newspaper, it's one of the most important, emotional, inspiring, and realistic series ever produced on TV about black people and their struggles with the American criminal justice system. What do I mean by that? We look at wrongfully incarcerated individuals who have been exonerated by clear and convincing evidence and DNA evidence, Jamal. These are people who are 100% innocent. Didn't do it, didn't have anything to do with it, but yet they are put in prison for 10, 20, 30 years of their lives. We're talking about people who go in at 19 years old and get out at 47, and the whole time they're saying, I'm innocent, and their families and their loved ones, they never give up on them. And the unfortunate thing is the Innocence Project and other criminal justice institutions have collected the data, and they believe there is many as 100,000 people sitting in American prisons who are completely innocent. And the real unfortunate part of it is most of them are black people. The highest percentage of wrongfully incarcerated people are black men. And so what we're looking at in this series is exploring how does this happen, but not only how does it happen, it's an inspirational story because these people who the American criminal justice system sought to define as the worst that society has to offer, the worst, after decades in prison, they come out and they're not bitter and they're not focused on hate, because you will see, they say it was hate that put me in this cage. It was love that brought me out, and I don't have time for hate anymore, because hate is its own kind of prison. And it's kind of deep when you think of these brothers who've been here all this time, why they ain't bitter and ready to blow somebody's head off. They're like, nah, man, that's what got me in here, this kind of ignorance and this hatred. We got to be able to try to make the world a better place for our children. And it gets so deep when you look at this series, because you have prosecutors and police who American society want to believe like it's the gospel, but yet these young, poor people of color, nobody believes that they're innocent and what they're saying is true. And that's our battle. And so we're trying to impact the hearts and minds of future prospective jurors who will watch this show. It's unlike any other television show when you really think about it, because, you know, Forensic Files and Law and Order, all these shows are predicated on defining justice as locking them up and throw away the key. Whereas with Evidence of Innocence, we're defining justice as the search for the truth, and we're getting black people out of prison. Yeah. And so it's real novel.
It's interesting you said that you wanted to change the mindsets of potential jurors, because I mean we always talk about reform of the judicial system, the way prosecutors prosecute their own, and the law enforcement. But at the end of the day, when there becomes these jury trials, there's people that's going in with their pre-programmed concepts of what African-American males are, and a lot of times their judgment is already, even when they say they're going in there with a clear head, they've watched Cops and Law and Order and all this other stuff, and they come in thinking.
Hell, they just watch the front of the newspapers, and every newspaper love to show a black man in handcuffs on the cover, accused of some heinous crime. So all of this is indoctrinated into their minds. Malcolm X said that one of the most powerful drugs ever made was television. And when you really think about it, man, you watch TV enough, I mean, it affects your subconscious. It have you thinking things that you don't even realize you're thinking if you see the images portrayed enough. And so that's what we're fighting against. I'm so thankful to TV One and executive producer Rashawn McDonald and Jupiter Entertainment for allowing me to try to do something that I believe really can impact how our children are going to be judged in the courtroom. When the police keep saying, we got all this evidence here and it's overwhelming. Well, you got to question that evidence, because in this show, it shows you that prosecutors will mislead you, prosecutors will deceive you, prosecutors will lie to you and put innocent people in prison. And as I say, in all of these speeches I give all around the country at universities and law schools and stuff, the easiest thing to do in the American criminal justice system is to convict a black or a brown person of a crime. You don't even have to have any evidence at all. I mean, it's innuendo. You fit a description, you know, and that's what they're locking our children up for. And when you hear these stories of these men and women, Lisa Roberts, her situation is so compelling, because the whole case that put this young black military veteran who was a homosexual back in the mid-'80s, accused of killing her ex-lover, was all built on a lie, on a prejudice. But nobody would stand with her. I mean, she had no one. And so these are the people who we got to stand up for and fight for. And this is what TV One has allowed me to do with this show. And I think it's so important that we keep telling our stories, yell it from the mountaintop. And so, again, I'm thankful to Black Tree TV and all the people who get to listen to this, because hopefully they will understand that this could happen to me or somebody I love. And we as a people, as a collective, got to say, we got to, you know, fight this. We got to speak truth to power. We got to go to the courtrooms. We got to participate when we get the jury notices. As a black lawyer, man, one of the most hurtful things ever is to go in the courtroom, and the only thing black in that courtroom is you, your client, and the judge's robe. And all the black people try to get out of serving on the jury. I mean, we need you on that jury. Your vote is more important on that jury than it is in any presidential election or any, you know, state governor election. Your vote really will decide the fate, more likely, of a young black or brown person, just by you being in that room.
How do you, I mean, because we here at home, we see the cases, we see the hashtags, we get emotional, but you have one of the toughest jobs. You're talking to the families of people that just lost their son or their mom or what have you. How do you stay strong through that, and how do you not let all that stuff beat you up?
Yeah. You know, Thurgood Marshall, as I said, is my personal hero. And as daunting as a task that we have, I really believe our ancestors had it far worse, Jamal. You know, Thurgood Marshall would get called from little black people begging for him to come to their communities and try to deliver justice. And I have to put it in full context, so bear with me because I want to give Thurgood all the props he deserved. That's my man. Thurgood and them would be at the NAACP office up in Harlem, and they would get, you know, letters every day of black men getting lynched in the South. And when I say the South, I'm using Malcolm X's definition of the South, anything below the Canadian border. But they would get all these pictures of people getting lynched, and then they would call Thurgood when these black men are being accused of raping white women, killing people with no evidence. And when he says, here come, oftentimes he would have to go by himself because they didn't have these big budgets where he could take a team. And all the black people would be happy. Everybody would be cheering that Thurgood is coming, Thurgood is coming. But also, all these white supremacists, the KKK and the Klan, everybody knew he was coming. And yet he came anyway, knowing that they were going to try to kill him. I mean, he had to move from house to house every day while he was working on the case because they were going to try to come and burn the house down and lynch him. And so, but yeah, he kept doing it. So I think even though I have a tough job, I draw my inspiration from Thurgood and them. And, you know, think about how many times Thurgood would lose the cases trying to defend black people who everybody knew was innocent. But yet he kept going, facing all the criticism, all the naysayers and everything. But yet he kept fighting. And so you always understand it's never about you personally, it's about the cause. And so when I talk to these families, and I try to be as honest as I can with them, that the reality is when the police kill black people in America, they normally don't go to prison. They normally not held accountable. But what we're going to do is make them have to see the injustice. We're not going to let them sweep it under the rug. And it's such a hard conversation. You know, Trayvon was killed now over 6 years ago. Martin Luther Anderson over 12 years ago. That was Trayvon before there was a Trayvon. A 14-year-old kid. Yeah, I mean, so many of them. And Jamal, what happens is you ask them to do something incredibly difficult. You know, whether it's Eric Garner's family, Freddie Gray family, they have to grieve publicly. And if you're a parent, I mean, it's just devastating. Part of you has just been taken away by the people who are supposed to protect and serve you, and they've killed your child. Now, we're asking you to grieve publicly because if you don't have any chance at justice. If you go and you try to grieve privately, then it's going to be swept under the rug so fast, nobody will remember their name except you and your family. So, Trayvon parents, you know, they taught us all how to grieve with dignity and grace and fight the public fight. And it was deep because I remember Sabrina, when we first did that first press conference, she could barely speak. I mean, she was just crying, and I mean, she was grabbing my hand so tight. But now you see Sabrina, and she's very dignified and graceful, but it still does not neglect the fact that that is the most difficult thing to do. It goes against the whole natural order of life when you think about it. In the English language, we have a word to define when you lose a spouse. You're a widower. You know, when a child loses a parent, you're an orphan. We don't even have a word to define a parent losing a child because we all believe our children are going to bury us. Now we're going to bury our children. And if it happens, nobody expects to get the call that the police shot and killed your son, shot and killed your daughter. Yeah. You know, nobody expects that call. But it happens. It's just a reality that we as black parents, and Latino parents. It's a real possibility every day. And so you ask me how I do it, I often think of my own children. And I go fight as if it's my own child. And you know you're fighting a racist system. But if we don't stand up for our children, if we don't speak up for our children, if we don't fight for our children, then we can't expect nobody else to do it for us.
Before you go, I gotta get your opinion though. I mean, do you ever see like a lot of hypocrisy in media? I guess everybody does, but when you see the TV hosts like Sean Hannity or whoever else go out and say, "Look, Michael Brown. Look, the judge said he was guilty. He's guilty. I mean, or the cop was innocent. He's innocent." And then now you see like there's this supposed witch hunt, and now all these judges and prosecutors and everything else could be crooked when it's dealing with. Do you ever like notice that?
Well, yeah, you know, they have to call it what it is. My grandmother said the only way to kill a snake, you gotta bash it in the head. I mean, every chance we get to bash this snake of racism, we gotta bash it in the head. In America, we all know it's racist, and that's part of our reality. We can't run from it. Some people think by not talking about it or trying to, you know, be thoughtful and sensitive about how we talk about race is somehow going to make it better. Well, they keep killing our children. You know, the TV pundits have a lot of power. Like I said, Malcolm X is right. TV is one of the most powerful drugs ever. But we got to remember also that our highest forms of government are doing exactly what the TV pundits are doing. Because after Michael Brown was assassinated on that street in broad daylight, the court system assassinated his character and everything about him over and over again. But yet when you have these young white boys who are mass murderers, they say, oh, they were sick young people, they had mental illnesses. They don't call them the names that they call our children. And so absolutely it's hypocrisy. But we are the solutions. We are the solutions. I don't care what anybody say. They said, you know, about slavery. Our ancestors, they kept fighting. Despite what any rapper says about slavery being a choice, they kept fighting. You know, Thurgood Marshall, Brown versus Du Bois, despite the numerous defeats, they kept fighting. You know, it's just no matter what, you have to keep standing up. I always say this, and I'll say this in closing, because it certainly is what I believe completely in my heart of hearts. And I think TV won because evidence of innocence, we talk about it every Monday night, 10 o'clock, starting on June 4th. Y'all tune in. We need the ratings if we're going to keep telling our stories. Thank you, Black Tree TV. Thank you, Jamal. Thank you, Daryl. Everybody, it's so important that we stay woke, because it all comes back to what Thurgood Marshall said at the bicentennial celebration of the U.S. Constitution. He said that the basis of the American Constitution is simply this, that a black baby born to a black mother, the most uneducated black mother, the most inarticulate black mother, the most impoverished black mother, has the same exact rights as a white baby born to a white mother, the most educated white mother, the most articulate white mother, the most affluent white mother, just by virtue of that black baby drawing its first breath as an American. Now, Justice Marshall said, I know that's not the case in America today, but I challenge anybody to say that's not a goal worth fighting for. I challenge anybody to say that's not what makes America the great beacon of hope and justice for all the world to marvel. So when we stand up for the Trayvon Martins of the world, and more importantly, the unknown Trayvon Martins of the world. When we stand up for the least of these, what we're really doing is helping America live up to its creed of being this great beacon of hope and justice for all the world to marvel. And more importantly, what we're doing is helping America be America for all Americans. So we just got to keep standing up, brother, no matter what they do. No matter how much they try to knock us down, we just got to keep standing up. And we got to try to stand up united. We got to try to be together and say, you know, this system is trying to divide us. Don't help the system divide us. Let's don't be crabs in the bucket. Let's don't be haters and negative people. You see a brother out there trying to do it, you try to say, well, what can I do to help? You see a sister out there fighting in the system, try to say, what can I do to help? Because our children need all of us to do better, to try to make a better world for America. So thank you, Black Tree TV. You keep doing what you're doing. We all got a role to play, as Martin Luther King said.
Man, I'll keep on cheering for you, man, and hoping that, you know, you could find justice when these people have been unjustly treated. And I'm proud of you, and I'm proud that you're fighting that fight. And I'm sure Thurgood Marshall is, when he did it, he was hoping that there would be people that wanted to carry that baton, and I'm glad that you're one of them.
Hey, thank you, brother. God bless you.
Tell the people how they can reach you on social media, follow you. And
Certainly. I'm at Attorney Crump on Twitter and Instagram, and Ben Crump Law on Facebook. And tune in to Evidence of Innocence starting Monday, June 4th, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on TV1. TV1 represent.
there you go. Okay.
Got it?
When you enter,
Okay.
goes
It's
for-
at TV1 TV too.
Okay. Gotcha.
At TV1 TV.
Okay.
Waist shot. Waist shot.
Huh?
4 feet cam, waist shot.
Okay, all right.
3, 2.
So tell the people how they could find you on social media or follow you.
Certainly. On my website, bencrumplaw.com. I'm at Attorney Crump on Instagram and Twitter. Facebook is Ben Crump Law. And thank you, Jamal, and ebony.com. Please tune in. TV1 is representing at TV1. Evidence of Innocence every Monday night, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 o'clock Central Time. It is a show that you need to watch. This could happen to you or someone in your family. Evidence of Innocence for the wrongfully incarcerated.
Thank you for your time, Dr. Benjamin Crump, and we wish you the best. We're behind you as you're behind those families, man. So we cheering you on and hoping that you can find justice for those that have been unjustly treated.
We're all in this together. Thank you to you and ebony.com, man.
Thank you.
And the one thing you didn't do, you can add it, you didn't put the date, June 4th. Nobody ever said June 4th. That's okay, you can add that in there.
Yeah, I'll put it on the graphic. I'll put a graphic
Okay.
down the bottom.
Okay.
Appreciate it. I'll give you a phone back.
Yep, I did.
Let me get
Got it.
that. We're good.